Good evening and welcome to another episode of My Fiber Fun. Well, the time has finally come for story time. Okay, you guys, before we get to that, let's get the preliminaries out of the way. First of all, look at the winner. And you know what? Hey, wait a minute. It almost matches my little shawl. This is one of my little trashy shawls that will be going to the greenhouse in the spring of the year once I start utilizing it. Actually, I was out there on today. I got it all cleaned up and prepped so that I could take my brassicas out there next month after the surgery. And so I just put it on today because I wanted something over my shoulders because I was getting a little cold. So, but this one you all haven't seen, and then I have a few more that you'll see later. So I'm just wrapped up in it, but yep, the colors match. But anyway, yes, this one won out. And I'm glad that I had never heard of the heathered look. And that made perfect sense. Totally different, totally different. And so I want the colors, and I think that Granny Square blanket in the Neuro book there that I have, I think that's the reason why they showcased that particular blanket or that particular Afghan or whatever they called it. I think they had it as an Afghan. So I think it was because of how the colors looked. It really made it look nice. And that's what made me decide to switch over. And this is warm, you know, because it's cotton and silk. It's heavier. It's a little heavier. So even with the holes in between, it's very warm to me. I don't feel any air coming through. Whereas with your traditional Granny Square blankets, with the exception of maybe cotton or something heavier, you know, if you do 100% cotton, it would be warm. But this would be fine, and I can always make another. I'll eventually do the heathered look one in another color. I think that the vibrant colors wouldn't be good for that, but maybe I can use like some browns, some neutrals, particularly neutrals, like your brown, gray, little black, those type of colors with the heathered look, I think will be beautiful. Yep, so here we go. So we're moving right along, and I'm still on the first ball. So look how I know it's going to take more and more yarn, or yeah, it's going to take more and more yarn as it gets bigger. But I like the how big it is with just one ball thus far, and I'm not even through with it. And this is how much I still have left to go. So that's good. And so I have all these balls left of it. So, and then I black to border it with. So it's going to be really, really, I think it's going to turn out to be a nice size. If it gets to 60 inches, I'll be happy. And I believe we'll make it. Or I'll make it rather. Okay, so enough of that. Let me put this down and let's get going. What I did to try to keep this short as possible, because y'all know me. I might get to another story within a story and all that stuff. I can think of one I'll be telling during this. But other than that, we'll try to keep this short and sweet. Okay, so where we left off was when I was diagnosed with the ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, and then it was determined in late 2020 that I would be having the ostomy surgery, although it had been discussed in 2019 after the C. diff episode. And but then once it was sealed and dealed and all that, wait just a second, y'all. I was looking for my pen and I can't find it, of course, when I need it. Hold on. Well, I can make do without it. I'll just use this as a pointer. Okay, so anyway, once everything was decided, everything went really, really quick because I got out of the hospital. Correction, I mentioned that I got out of the hospital the day after Christmas. Actually, I got out of the hospital that last time. It was the day after Thanksgiving. But I spent Thanksgiving in the hospital. I came out the day after Thanksgiving, but then from there up until surgery date, I may as well have been in the hospital, okay, because all that pre-op stuff, it was rushed because the surgery was coming up. They needed to get it done ASAP. I thought they should have just went on and did it when I was in the hospital, since I already knew I was going to miss, Thanksgiving. It really didn't matter. And I felt so bad anyway, but they had got me stable enough. And the doctor felt that those 2 little weeks that we had to buy time, she knew that that would help me to get prepared and to learn more about it and things like that. And so looking back, I don't regret that happening, but boy, I was tired. And then on top of that, I was still weak and sick and all that. And I had to go through all that because I had to meet with the nurse. I had to meet with the nutritionist. I had to meet with another nurse, the actual stoma nurse. I had to meet with the doctor. Then she decided the day before surgery, I needed to have a colonoscopy. And the reason is that when she looked at the one that I had in the hospital and all the inflammation and stuff, she wanted to get a better eye on my colon, since I had been through the course of steroids, and that I needed to, she wanted to get a better look, because she had decided that where she saw damage was with the sigmoid colon, the sigmoid portion of the colon. So the original surgery was going to be, although I would have the ostomy, she was going to remove the sigmoid portion of the colon, the damaged part, and then she was going to reroute the intestines, and I would still have a bag. I was going to have a colostomy bag. Colostomy bags, remember this, are usually on the left. Unless there's some sort of emergency and they just have to place it, they could put it on the right also. But to distinguish, doctors typically put the colostomy on the left, and then your ileostomy your stoma is on the right. And so I'm speaking of stoma, the intestine. And what a stoma is the part of the intestine that comes out of the stomach, and then that's the way you go to the bathroom, and it comes out into the ostomy bag. So anyway, you could also have, and I'll get into the education of ostomies at the end of the story here, and that won't take long, but I will explain the whole process of how it works and everything. Okay, so anyway, so I was going to have a colostomy, which would have been on the left side, and then it would have been reversible, because a lot of people get the ostomy and they have it reversed if they're able to. Most people opt for that if they can. Me, I didn't know what I was going to do, but since she was talking about reversal and how I would be helped, I thought, okay, I'm all for it. I would just do the reversal later, but it didn't bother me if it had to be permanent. And so she wanted to do this colonoscopy the day before surgery. And so when she had planned that, I told the doctor, I was like, listen, I said, when you do the colonoscopy the day before surgery, I said, instead of us, I said, what if there's more damage and you need to remove the whole colon and I have to have it permanently? I said, let's just treat it as if it's going to be permanent. I said, then that way I can prepare for either way. I said, we hope for the best, but I will expect the worst and be prepared for it. She said, that's a good way of looking at it. So that's how we did it. So as we talked, during that pre-op, we talked as if it was going to be permanent, but then she would give the best case scenario as if she was just doing the portion and the reversal. So I got the whole kit and caboodle. So anyway, so that way no surprises were going to come. Okay, so now it's January 5th, the day before surgery. I have to go for a colonoscopy, and I had to be there early in the morning. First of all, since surgery was the next day, 2 days before surgery, I had to start the prep, which meant the prep for the colonoscopy. And it was, I had to go on this special antibiotic. I was taking these other pills. It was a lot of stuff I had to do in the days leading up to the surgery itself. And I can't quite remember everything, but it was a lot. It was a lot. And so anyway, I was in the middle of that. And then the prep, I had to start the prep the day before the colonoscopy. And then I couldn't eat anymore after that because the surgery was going to be the following day. So I showed up at like 5 in the morning for the colonoscopy, and I was like, doctor, why couldn't I just have stayed? You could have done the colonoscopy and I could have been admitted, and then surgery the next day. And she was like, because of insurance. She was like, they're not going to pay for that. It has to be warranted. No, I was like, well, it is. I have to have the surgery. She was like, but I didn't know what the colonoscopy would show and all that stuff. So whatever. There I was, and I knew I was going to be going home and starving for the rest of the day because the surgery was going to be the next day, and I was already a bundle of nerves to begin with. Okay, so anyway, she did the colonoscopy. We come out of that. Of course, I'm as high as 2 bats. And so she had to tell my sister what was happening. She was like, I had to remove it all. So she had already ordered the robot because the surgery itself, period, either way, was going to be robotic. So she had already ordered the robot, but she had to make an adjustment to the time that was going to be spent in the operating room. And so anyway, so I woke up from the surgery, but I was still, under the influence of propofol. And so, so she pretty much explained everything to my sister. So I knew, by the time I woke up later that next day, I was going for the ileostomy. They were going to be removing my full colon, and I would have the ileostomy in the end. And so I had already studied up on it, and I knew exactly what to expect and all that stuff. Well, I didn't know what to expect, but basically I knew what to expect as much as I could know. Okay, so now surgery day is here. Had to be back at the hospital at 5 in the morning. So the first thing when I get there, and I was like, I didn't sleep the night before. Oh, I had to take these special pills. And then that morning I had to take a whole nother dose of it. I had to wash with this special soap. And it was just so much I had to do the night before and the morning of surgery. It's the dead of winter to begin with. So it's cold out and all this stuff. And so we get to the hospital. I had to be there at 5:30. And so I was taken back to the pre-op area, and they started getting me all hooked up to, the IVs. And yeah, those of you who've had surgery, you know what goes on when you're getting ready to have surgery and you're a bundle of nerves. So then the guy, the anesthesiologist came in. Boy, when you see that anesthesiologist, your heart sinks because this is it. When they get in there, it's almost time. And so he started explaining everything. He explained what anesthesia he'd be using and all this stuff. And he's like, you're in good hands and, you'll be okay and blah, 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 blah. So he said, shortly here, we'll be coming in to give you something to relax you. I was like, thank you, because I am a bundle of nerves. And I was nice and everything, bubbly, just like I'm always, So I'm joking around, but still, when you're a bundle of nerves, you can be bubbly, but in the back of your mind, you thinking death, okay? And for me, it's a good thing that I was. So, of course, I'll give this disclaimer. I am spiritual and religious, but I don't push it on anyone. If you're a believer or non-believer, I always said that's everybody's personal choice. I don't think anybody should push religion on anyone. But believe me, when you know that something's about to happen, whether you believe or not, you might decide to believe at that moment. But I'm a believer. We'll just leave it at that. So that's my little disclaimer. So you'll hear me speak of some spiritual things, especially when I get to the near-death experience. Okay, so anyway, so he left. And then who came in? Some other people came in and stuff. Oh, then the consent people. Whoo, and Lord, when you read that consent, the first thing it says, medical isn't an exact science and blah, blah, blah. So you have to sign your life away, basically. So I signed. And so then the anesthesiologist came back. He said, we're going to give you something to relax you in your IV. He put that mess in. I don't know what it was, but it was like swoosh. And I was like, whoa. So by then I was feeling good, okay? So I'm just kind of chilled out and stuff. So then they came in to roll me into the operating room. So then we get in the operating room, they get me on the table and stuff. And so they're prepping and stuff. So I'm thinking, because usually once you enter the operating room, usually you see the doctor real quick, you say good morning, and then it's lights out. I was in that operating room it was at least 20 minutes before the action even started, okay? So I'm laying there on that cold table, of course, looking around. Then the anesthesiologist came back. He's like, I'm going to give you something else. He was like, it may make you drift off a little bit. He said, but this isn't the actual anesthesia. He said, it's just to calm you down because my heart was beating all fast and my blood pressure was up and all that stuff. He said, it's just to calm you down. He said, but you may drift off. So he gave me that, and that was all she wrote as far as coherency. I was as high as a doggone cloud, okay? And so then here comes the stoma nurse. We forgot to mark you. I'm like, mark me? She was like, yeah, we have to mark where the stoma is going to be placed. She was like, is there any particular area that you wanted? I'm so doggone high and half asleep because I was drifting off. Usually most stomas are and I'm going to use my little stoma dial. And let me tell you that quick little story. It's a place called the Shadow Buddies Foundation. And it started out as a lady invented or created it because her son had some health issues and he didn't have any friends. So she decided to make him a shadow buddy to be his little friend, while he was going through whatever it was he was going through. I forgot what he had. And so it kind of took off. She started making them for other little children and stuff. And so with all type of chronic illnesses or life-threatening illnesses in the children's hospital. And so it blossomed over the years, and now they make shadow buddies for the elderly, for children. They're the main focus and target, and adults. And so I got my shadow buddy a couple of weeks ago. I ordered one. And so here it is. I made a donation. That's all I had to do. And I got me a shadow buddy. And so I picked a little black girl and I named her Ernestine. And so I have to do something with the hair. But anyway, to explain the stoma, we're going to use her as a prop. And since I'm an ostomy advocate, this is one of the reasons why I got this dial. So if I'm advocating. Okay, so hers is a colostomy because it's on the left side of her tummy. This is where it usually sits, either there or flush to the navel. And so most people with ostomies, they can't wear jeans and stuff, or lots of times things are uncomfortable because of where the stoma is placed. When the nurse came in to ask me where I wanted mine placed, I was so doggone high and groggy, I pointed way up here. So guess what my stoma is? When my bag is off, my right breast covers it, okay? It's high. But the good thing about it is, the one good thing is I can wear any type of pants that I want. I can wear jeans, anything, because my stoma is so far up, I don't have to worry about the interference. So when other people complain about all that, when they complain about all that, I don't. I tell them my stoma is up high. But there's a downside to that too, because when I change my bag, of course, I have to take this arm right here and do this. And then finagle, it was hard at first, okay? And that was my fault. But now it's easy. I have my bag changed in 2 minutes flat. Okay, back to the story. Okay, so anyway, I picked that crazy spot. And so once she marked it, she left out. And so then all of a sudden I saw my doctor come in. I was like, oh, here it comes, here it comes. So I started saying the prayer of what's the prayer? The prayer of faith, or, please let me come to heaven if I don't make it through this, because this is scary. Then they brought the robot in. I saw that big giant thing. I was like, this thing, one slip of one of those robotic arms or whatever, and I'm mincemeat, okay? So I was scared, even with me being high and half asleep. Next thing I know, the doctor told me good morning. And I said, good morning, doctor. I said, and don't cut my cloud. I have a birthmark on my stomach that looks exactly like a fluffy cloud. It's not real big. It's about the size of a $50. And I love my birthmark. I love it, okay? And I don't want nothing interfering with my birthmark. And so I said, don't cut my cloud. She had no idea what I was talking about. But she later told me, she was like, listen, she was like, I saw that little spot on your stomach. She was like, and I was aiming right for it. She said, because that was the perfect spot for me to cut. She was like, and I looked again and I was like, that's what she was talking about. It looks like a cloud. I was like, okay. I was like, I survived this. I was like, now you will survive this because you did not cut my cloud. Anyway, we got a kick out of that. But anyway, and my surgeon was female. Okay, so anyway, so when I told the doctor, don't cut my cloud, then I was like, good morning, everyone. Because all the other people started coming in. I was like, good morning, everyone, and good night. That's the last thing I remember. When I said, and good night, I guess he was shooting that stuff in. And next thing I know, I was waking up, okay? But anyway, and had no idea what all had happened during the course of the surgery. Okay, so during the surgery, she was doing it robotic. So she had put the little robotic incisions in. Oh, I was a doggone, what you call it? I look like Swiss cheese when I woke up, because she had the incisions from the robotic part. The surgery started out robotic. And when she got to my colon, it burst. And when it burst, she had to quickly switch over and open me up. So I ended up with the scar from stem to stern, okay? Up here, right here, and it goes all the way down. And so she had to open me up to finish the surgery, hurry up and get my colon out, and go on with the remainder of the surgery. And I forgot to tell you the second part of the surgery. My surgery was called a total colectomy, and the colectomy is the removal of the colon with a procto. So it was called a proctocolectomy. And what that means is you get what they call a Barbie butt. The doll. Again, think of a Barbie doll or any doll as that, for that matter. Look at the butt. What's missing? The hole, right? So we call it Barbie butt. We call our surgery Barbie butt, but technically that's the nickname for it. That's what we call it. We say we have a Barbie butt. But technically what it's called is a proctocolectomy. So what she ended up needing to do, she didn't know what she was going to have to do. But when my colon burst and she saw all the damage, she said that my anus and rectum were severely damaged. And that probably came from the C. diff itself at some point. So she had to remove my rectum and she removed my anus. And she sewed me shut. So that was the end of that. So yeah, you're looking at somebody with no butthole, okay? All right, and I talk about it. You know, it's no shame in it or whatever. It's weird, okay? But that's it. I just don't have a hole. And it changes your whole anatomy down there because everything shifts. You'd be amazed at what holds what in place, okay? And so that rectum holds other things in place. And so once that's removed, you know, everything kind of shifts. But anyway, that's TMI, so we'll get off of that. So I have the proctocolectomy as well, okay? So she did, you know, that was done, plus the removal of the colon. Well, what led to me almost dying, it had actually happened 2 days later. Okay, so everything was a success. I was in surgery over 10 hours. My sister told me that. My sister said, your surgery started. She's like, they came in there at about 8 to let her know that it was underway. We had been there since like 5:30 that morning. And so my sister was in the waiting room. The pandemic was still going on. So only people who had family members having surgery could be there. So she said, we just talked and we watched the insurrection. My sister was like, I sat there and couldn't believe my eyes. She was like, we were glued to the TV all day because that was going on. But anyway, she said they came in at 8 to let them know that the surgery was underway. And my sister said she didn't hear from them again until about maybe 3 that afternoon, because she was wondering, why is this taking so long? And they came in and told her that I was still in surgery. Let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So that was 7 hours, 4, 5, 6. My sister told me that she did not get back there to see me until about 7:30 that evening. That's when they finally let her in there to see me. And then she's like, she added me, made sure I was okay, and she was gone. And she did snap a picture of me because I saw it. I'm like, oh, so you gonna snap a picture of me right after surgery? I was looking crazy and surgical and all that stuff. So anyway, and I was asleep, of course. I was out of it. So so all that happened during surgery, but I came through it okay. And the surgery was like 10 hours. Okay. That night, it was like maybe 3, 4 in the morning. I know it was the middle of the night. They woke me up. They came in like to give me medicine and check on me and stuff, and it woke me up. And so the nurse was like, do you think you feel okay to get up? And I was like, sure, I do. And so what she did was she just had me to sit up on the bed, and I'm like, why is my butt hurting? And so that's when I found out what all had happened with that. And so I'm sitting up on the edge of the bed, and she just had me to kind of dangle my legs a little bit and just to get my bearings. She didn't have me to get up to walk or anything like that. And she said they would be in earlier in the morning for that. And so that next morning, they came in, they sat me up again and stuff. And I told her, I was like, I'm ready to walk because I was in no pain. I was under what they call the ERAS surgical program. And it was some type of pain management program that you're under. And they have you to chew gum because the gum, the gum stimulates the stoma and gets it to working. And so I had to have a lot of chewing gum and stuff like that. And it was a few other things. And then they do the pain management. So I can tell you, I never had any pain from the surgery other than the butt part, because later on they ended up packing my butt. And it was a nightmare. But anyway, we won't even go into that. That was the only time I had pain. But even after that, whenever they had to do anything with the proctocolectomy part, they would shoot the Valium, and they would make sure that the Valium had taken effect before they would do anything. And I didn't feel anything. I had no pain whatsoever. I was stiff. Okay, so that second day, they got me up, and so they walked me and everything, and I was doing pretty good. I had a walker. I requested that because of having MS. I just felt it would be better if I had a walker. So they had the walker, and I used that, and I did good. So then that second day, I felt pretty good. I would get up every hour on the hour, and I would walk the corridor around the hospital. And so I would do that. And I remember this one doctor, he looked at me, he was like, you just had surgery yesterday. He's like, you are doing good. He said, most patients don't even want to get out of bed. He's like, you are doing the right thing. You won't get the gas. You'll heal up real fast. I was like, yep. I was like, I already know. I've had surgery before, and I know you got to move or else. And we're at 30 minutes, so get ready, y'all. Just be ready, okay? Because we're not even halfway. We ain't even got to the near-death experience yet, but we're almost there. Okay, so then this was day number 2. Called my sister. We're talking back and forth. I'm doing great. I was feeling wonderful and happy it was over with and thanking God that I was alive, okay? So then that night, it was like later that night, I didn't feel right. I told the night nurse, I said, I have indigestion. It felt like I had indigestion. I'm thinking, Lord, I hope it ain't a heart attack, or, because they say that's what a heart attack feels like. But I just felt didn't feel right. And so I said, can I get some Maalox or, Tums or something for that? He was like, well, I'll check with the doctor. What this food bring me? A Vernus. And those of you, anybody from Michigan, Vernus is Michigan's medicine. Vernus will heal anything, so we think. And Vernus is a ginger ale, for those of you who don't know what Vernus is. Anyway, I'm glad I got this, because here's that back again, itching. It itches all the time, right in the center. I don't know why, but whew. Okay, I got it. Okay, so he gives me the Vernus. Why would I drink? And I'm still half high. Why would I drink carbonation right after surgery to begin with? I should have known better. Boy, next thing I know, a few hours later, I called him in there. I was like, I really feel bad now. And I told him, get me one of those little bowls or whatever, because I might throw up. I was like, I don't know if I will or not. I was like, but I said, I feel bad. So he went and he got one of those little, tub things in case you throw up. And so he's standing there talking. I was like, well, did you ask if I could have a Tums or whatever? I was like, because now I'm kind of nauseous and whatnot. And he was like, yeah, that's on deck and I'm waiting on that to come. They were going to give me like some Malox or whatever. So I was like, thank you. I was like, hand me that thing. Here it comes. Wait, y'all, that's just how I said it. I was like, hand me that thing. Here it comes. He was like, oh, okay. So then he's helping me along and all this stuff because I'm throwing up and I could not stop. It was like every 10 minutes or so, there I was, hocking. So then here comes the doctor. She was like, you might have a small blockage. She was like, so we're thinking about doing an NG tube. And see, I had that before, one before when I had a blockage a long time ago. And I was like, oh, I don't want that. She was like, don't worry, if we do it, she was like, if we have to do an NG tube, you won't feel a thing. I was like, I don't know how. I was like, because that last one just about killed me. I was like, and I said I would never do it again. She was like, no, if you get it, she was like, we will give you Valium first and then you'll get it. And I did end up getting the NG tube about a week later. And that's another story because the inflammation was blocking me. And then I started throwing up again. So they had to give me one. This was after the near-death experience. Actually, when I had to get the NG tube, but by then I was so wiped out from all the other stuff, I didn't care. But they did. They gave me the Valium. And when they gave me the Valium, I don't know how much they shot in me, but I remember telling the doctor, not the doctor, I told the person who was doing it, I was like, what you waiting on? Come on with it. And he was like, you're the same one who was saying you didn't want it and you were dreading it. I was like, come on with it. He put that thing in and boom, that was all she wrote. And I only had to have it for a few hours. Once they got me unblocked, then they removed it like 2-3 hours later and I was fine. I haven't thrown up since, okay? Knock on wood or plastic. But anyway, back to the near-death experience. So I'm feeling bad and all this is happening and stuff. And so suddenly I just started going downhill. And I don't know what happened. I remember falling asleep. I remember that. I felt like I was getting sleepy. But then they came to take blood and my doctor had come in and everything. And then I was throwing up and all that stuff. And then finally they gave me Zofran and then they gave me something else. And then that kind of stopped all that. But then by then I was weak and just sick. When you're sick, you're sick. So I couldn't get up to walk, nothing. I was just out of it. So I'm laying there half asleep. Next thing I know, next time my eyes open, I was in a different room. I'm like, where am I? My blood work had came back. And as it turns out, I'll tell you what happened before I get to the near-death experience. What happened was when she was doing the surgery and had to open me up, the infection, because she had discovered an infection when she was doing it robotically. And then my colon had burst too, on top of that. So the colon had burst and then the infection. And so what happened was the infection, unbeknownst to her, had spread and it went through my system. So basically, I guess I had gone into sepsis or whatever. And that's what almost killed me. So the infection had spread all over my body. My white blood cell count was so high because I later looked at my chart to see, everything after the fact. My white blood cell count was sky high. And so they started running the antibiotics and they had taken me. It was ICU, but during the time, because of the pandemic, ICU was still reserved for the C-19 people. And so they had made a makeshift ICU on the floor below that. So I was on the surgical floor, which was, I think, the second floor of the hospital. And I was in William Beaumont, Royal Oak. It's now called Corewell Health, but it's a huge teaching type hospital. It's your second largest other than U of M, which is in Ann Arbor, Michigan. But Beaumont is a big, well-known worldwide facility with the best doctors. Anyway, it has like 9 floors. So I ended up going up to the makeshift ICU, which was a floor below the actual real ICU where all the C-19 patients were. I didn't even know they had taken me there because I was out of it. I was sick, and sleep and whatnot. So when I did wake up, I was in this other room. And so because of it being ICU, there's always a nurse stationed in the hallway outside of your door. So I was critical, but I didn't know it at the time. And so, when I looked and saw I was somewhere else, I didn't ask any question. I was too weak for one, and I felt horrible. And it was just a different horrible feeling because I was in the sepsis and I was hot. I remember that. And so I'm laying there. So then I went back to sleep. I remember drifting back off, and I was facing to the right of me because there was a chair. I could see that there was a chair next to my bed, and then there was a wall right there. And on the other side of the wall, that was the bathroom and all that. And then my bed was right here, and then, all the other things in the room. So anyway, I'm laid looking to the right. And so I closed my eyes again, went back to sleep. And then I woke up again. And when my eyes popped open, I looked over to my right, and in that chair was sitting my mother. Now, mind you, my mother had died July 11th, 2020, 3 days before my birthday, okay? And I had prayed because my mom was in hospice at the time that she died. I was like, God, I don't care when she died. Please don't let it be on my birthday. I was like, it's already going to be bad enough because she's going to die in the month of my birthday and she's going to die around my birthday. I was like, but please don't let it be on my birthday. I was like, please. I was like, I could coexist any other way. And my mother died the 11th of July. And boy, wait till you hear her story about her death and stuff. But anyway, okay, so I opened my eyes, looked to the right, and there sat my mother. I'm looking dead at her. And so her mouth was moving as if she was talking, but I could not hear what she was saying. I just kept hearing this swoosh sound in my ears. And I'm like, what am I looking at here? And I'm looking at her and I'm just looking, and I'm going to tell you, I never, when my mother died, of course, I was in grief and all this surgery stuff coming up and stuff. But the surgery stuff, I knew I had to concentrate on that, but it did not lessen my grief anymore. Anyone who's lost a mother, I don't care what's going on around you or what's happening with you. You still go to grieve because you've just lost your best friend, your mother. And that was my final parent to lose. And I was like, what am I going to do? I'm on my own. I'm an orphan. And I still call myself an orphan. And people say, don't say that. You are an orphan. I don't care if you're 200 years old. When you lose your last parent, you are an orphan. Okay? It's just that simple. You're an orphan. Okay? Anyway, in my orphancy, I'm looking at my mother and I was grieving and everything, but my grief stopped after that because I saw her one more time. And so when I saw her mouth was moving and I'm looking at her, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. And I was too weak to try to even say anything to her. I'm just laying there. And I'm laying there staring at her while her mouth was moving. All of a sudden, she reached over because the chair was like right next to the bed. If anyone had been sitting in that chair, it could have been anyone. They were close enough to me to touch me. She reached over and touched me, and I felt the touch just as big. And when she touched me, actually it was on my leg. She touched my leg, and when she touched my leg, all of a sudden, I'm still looking over in that direction. That wall, that was right there, that led, that I was facing, all of a sudden, it was like this veil started. I call it a veil. It was like, or a curtain. It started slowly coming down. It was like, and it was dark. All of a sudden, it came down and it kept coming down. And I'm sitting there, I'm laying there looking at it. And so once the curtain or whatever that thing, let's just call it a veil, because that's what I always called it. Once the veil came down, all of a sudden, I'm looking into the other side. Now, mine might not sound like, I've heard different near-death experiences and stuff, and usually all of them contain religious stuff or whatever, but it's not like, because some people say, I saw my grandfather and I saw mama, but my mother was there in the room with me. It wasn't that I got to the other side and saw her. She was there before I went to the other side. So anyway, when this thing came down, all of a sudden, I was standing on the other side. And so let me try to describe it. I called it, and I gave it its own name. I called it the transient line, or the transit, TRANSIT line. Think of this as the transit line. I'm standing here on this side of the transit line. Well, on the other side of the transit line, and I'm standing right here on the edge. I'm watching. The first thing that I saw when I got there, I'm standing there watching. It was a lady, and she was coming through, and it was thousands of people behind her, and they were like kind of marching through, and they were headed off. And in a distance, I could see it was like a ship there, or it was something that they were getting ready to get onto, I guess, to head to heaven or wherever they were going. And this woman, as she was coming, she was reciting the 23rd Psalm. Now, we all recited in that tone. Y'all know the tone. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down. You know how we say it. We all say it in that same tone as if it's a song, okay? And it is. It's a psalm, but I mean, that's the way we say it. She was saying it she was saying the words, but she was saying it in a totally different way. I can't even describe it. I've tried to, and it come out sounding silly every time, so I don't even bother. She was saying it in such a different way, and it was in such an authoritative way that it gets your attention. And she was loud. I mean, she was very loud. That I remember that real well. Everybody's paying attention. And she's coming through there. She was at the lead. And I knew it was a lady. And I'm looking at her. So then she's passing and she's going through, and she done said what she said. And then all the people were behind her, and they weren't afraid of anything. So I don't know if because she was saying that they weren't afraid, but they were behind her because she was taking them right on through to wherever they were going. And so then she's saying this, and I'm listening, and I knew during the course when these people were coming through, I knew that I had the opportunity. I could have stepped right over. It wasn't a line there. I just called it that because I was here, they were there, but they were so close. I could have reached out and touched them. I could have reached out and touched anyone who was there, or if I had took one step, I could have went there and joined them. And now that I look back, I didn't do it. I was in such awe, and I didn't want to do it. I didn't, it was like they were there, but I was not wanting to go over there. And so the thing is, had I done it, that would have been it for me. I would have been with them and I would have died, But anyway, so they were coming through, and then at the end, finally, because I was there forever watching, and I was kind of like in awe, and I could still hear this lady because she just kept repeating over and over, and she was so loud, I could still hear her, and I couldn't even see her anymore. And so when it was over with, when it finally got towards the end, I looked, and so I saw like the last group of people coming, and they're getting closer and closer. So that, I guess that might have been my last chance. If I wanted to join them and step in, I could have, but I didn't, because behind those people, probably a few, it was quite a few feet back, there was a man, and he was on a white horse, and he was coming through behind them. And so he was getting closer, and the people were coming, they were coming through, and they were getting closer. And when that last group of people passed me, the man on the white horse was coming through, and he didn't even get to where I was. Once the people passed and I saw the man on the horse, all of a sudden the veil started going up. It started lifting. And then all of a sudden I was back in my hospital bed, looking crazy again. And so the first thing I did was look back over to my mother, and she was gone. And that was it. Haven't seen her since. And so the nurse came in a few minutes later, and I was finally able to talk. She was like, "You woke." And so I don't know how long I had been out or what. And so I kind of like whispered. I said, "I just saw my mother, and I was in the line, and blah, blah, blah." And she looked at me. She was like, Hun, be quiet. You're hallucinating." I was like, no. And so she said I was hallucinating, so I didn't say anything else. And so she said, "I'm coming to take your blood." She was like, "And then I'll leave you alone and you can go back to sleep or whatever." And I'm like, all this had just happened. And so she took the blood. And so then about an hour after that, and so that was the near-death experience, y'all. I hope it was eventful for you or whatever, because it sounds boring to me. But the point is, that's how it happened. But I know that's what it was. So then the doctor came in about, I would say 2 hours later. I'm guessing at time because I had no concept. She came in, and when she saw me, I was woke, still. She's like, "I didn't know what was going to happen with you." She was like, "I really did not know how this was going to turn out." She's like, "But I will tell you this." She said, "I just got your blood work back." She said, "And you can go to step down." She was like, because she told me what happened. She's like, the infection had gone through your body. She said, "And I didn't know if you were going to make it or not." She said, "But for some reason," she was like, "this morning your blood work was showing that the antibiotics hadn't really done much." She was like, "And I didn't know what would happen." She was like, "But now," she was like, "your white blood cell count is going down." She was like, "And everything is fine." She was like, "So by this evening," she said, "if everything goes well, after your next blood draw, you will go to step down. And one thing about it, if any of you have ever been in ICU or even had a relative or known someone who has gone to ICU, the moment you make that turnaround and show any sign of improvement and out the woods, you're out of there, because they have, they need room for other people and stuff. So you go to step down." So that's what happened. So that evening, they took me to step down. I'm thinking, I done went through all this, the near death and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden I'm in step down, and she's telling me that I'm doing better and everything. I was so weak from that. And so for the rest, I was in the hospital. I went in on the 6th of January for the surgery. I was hospitalized until April 1st of 2021. So I spent just shy. Had I made it to April 6th, I would have been in there for 3 months. But I was in there basically for 2 months and 27 days or whatever. So what happened was, I had to go through recovery after that. So I was in step down for about a week or two. Then they moved me to a regular room. Okay, so what happened was, they had me on so many opioids and stuff, I ended up getting gastroparesis. I couldn't eat. If I took one bite, I couldn't eat. I would be full. I lost so much weight. Now, let's back up. Once upon a time, and this was years ago, up until about 2009, my highest weight that I weighed was 283 pounds. Yes, I was a butterball. Okay? But after the Crohn's and the ulcer colitis and Crohn's and stuff, although I didn't have any problems with it, I lost weight, from throughout the years. And I think it was because I had to change my eating. It was different things I could not eat, because the doctor had said it would, it could get me out of remission and activate it. And I took that seriously. And so I lost weight as a result. It wasn't that much. I lost down to about 240 pounds from 283. Okay, so then after the C. diff episode in 2019, I really dropped weight. I dropped like 20 during the C. diff, and then after the C. diff business throughout 2020, and then with my mother dying and all that, everything leading up to that, I had dropped even more. So on the day that I went into the hospital for surgery, they weighed me. I was weighing 210 pounds. So I thought I was the stuff then, okay? But the point is, I lost so much weight after this when I got out that hospital, we'll just say 3 months later, I was down to 170 pounds. And as you can see, I'm a butterball again. So right now I'm right around 230. And so I can lose weight easily. My biggest problem, sweets. Sweets, sweets, sweets. I crave sweets during the winter. I crave sweets, period. So I eat cakes, cookies, candy, all that stuff because I love sweets. So if I back up off the sweets, I'll begin to drop. In fact, I lost like 15 pounds last summer just gardening and cutting back on the sweets. Then of course, started back again. So now I'm a butterball once more. But anyway, yes, I was 170 when I got out the hospital and I looked horrible. And my doctor told me, she's like, I want you to gain weight. She was like, because you didn't lose it in the way in which you should have. And it was because of sickness. So my muscles were weak. I ended up having to go to rehab, my recovery. That's why I was in there for so long. They had to get me strengthened back up. By the time I got out the hospital, I was totally healed from the surgery, butt and all, okay? I went fishing the day after I got out. I was so happy to be out the hospital. I went fishing with my friend and we had a great time. Everything was healed. I ended up buying a bike. It was like a tricycle. Then found out with this proctocolectomy, I could never ride a bike again. A lot of people say they can ride a bike. I can't, okay? My butt feels funny now. Okay, so I'm gonna explain the ostomy and all that, and then we'll wrap it up. We're at 51 minutes, so we'll go just a little bit over an hour. Actually, that's good because I thought this would go even a little longer. Okay, so I explained what the proctocolectomy is. I'll tell you this. Anytime I go to the hospital or if I get sick, I've been in the hospital numerous times since this because I had a severe MS attack last year. Last winter, I was down all winter. I had my MS attack once again, I was hospitalized on Thanksgiving. I had it in November and I was in the hospital for like 2 weeks. I was home for Christmas, but them steroids and stuff had me tore up. Then I had to go through PT and OT. That's automatic when you have an MS attack. And why I had that flare, it was just for no reason. I wasn't stressed or anything. I just had it. You know, every now and then you could have one. And I'm a thunderbolter. I usually have an attack every 5 or 6 years. That's how I've gone with it. And usually I'm a thunderbolter. I'm the type, when I'm doing good, like I am now, I'm good. When I'm doing bad, boom, it hits me like a ton of bricks. I woke up one morning, my legs were numb. I was crickle-crackling, like I explained the last time. So I knew it was an MS attack. Went to my neurologist, and he admitted me to the hospital and started Salomedrol, which is the steroid. And it is good. It stops the attack and everything, but it's a very hard steroid. So you feel worse from the steroid than you did from the attack. So when it was over and done with, they did the MRI of the brain, my C-spine, which is the neck area, and my thoracic spine. I was having a T7 attack, thoracic. So therefore, they found a plaque, it was an old plaque that had opened back up. And what MS is, think of a coating on an electrical cord. This is a cord. If we were to shave this off with a razor blade, the wires would be exposed. So the wires would shorten out. That's what MS is. You get plaques either on your brain or your spinal cord or your optic nerve. And when that happens, your nerves are exposed and then it shortens. So that's how you get your symptoms and your attacks. That's what MS is in a nutshell. Multiple sclerosis. Okay. So anyway, I had the MS attack last year. So after Thanksgiving, once I finally got home 2 weeks later, I had to go through PT and OT because it had weakened me and everything. And those steroids do a number on you. So all last winter, I was doing PT and OT up until March. And then, no, up until the end of February. Once again, I was fishing because the weather had broken stuff early here in Michigan. Me and my friend, we back out at the lake catching fish. So that was the end of that attack. And I haven't had one since. Thank God. Okay. So anyway, whenever I go into the hospital, what I was leading to, you have to, when you give your medical history, you have to let them know. So I always let them know I have an ileostomy, and then they probe Well, why did you have to get an ileostomy? I tell them I had ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. They removed my colon, and then they had to remove my rectum and anus. You know what? And you have to tell them. That's the thing, because I wish I didn't have to, but lots of times, and then hospitals, especially with people my age, they inspect you. The older you get, they inspect you. They want to see your skin. They want to make sure you don't have anything breaking down. So they're going to do that inspection of you when you're admitted. And so, you know, I don't want them inspecting me and then get the surprise of their life. So I always tell them, you know, I'm truthful. But it used to bother me, but now it doesn't. I tell them have at it, because every time, I'm telling you, every time I tell anybody, I don't care if it's a doctor, nurse, aide, I don't care who it is. If I tell them, they always come up with a reason to see it. And so I already expect it. When they come back in the room, I just flip over on my tummy and tell them, I know what you're here for. Have at it. And tell me while you're at it, tell me what it looks like, because I've never seen it. And that's the thing, I've never seen it. I can't see back there. So my sister saw it, so I was like, okay, Sherry, what it look like? She's like, a Barbie butt. That's what it looks like. It looks like a butt with no hole. And she was like, why are you even asking that? I was like, because I want to know what it looked like. I was like, and I can't see it. But anyway, everybody sees it but me, okay? But anyway, they always come up with an excuse to see, and they be like, how you know that we were gonna need to look at it, because we need to check to make sure that that is healed properly. No, you just want to see it because you're curious. I'm a freak, I know. It's funny. And so we just laugh and laugh and laugh. And so anyway, I said, it's either I can continue to be upset and let it be a self-conscious thing, or I could just joke about it and be done with it. And so in my advocacy, you know, I talk about it. And so that's it. So now y'all know. Y'all looking at Q without a butthole. I guess now every time y'all see me, you don't feel, oh, she don't have a butthole. Let me stop. But for real. But the thing is, it feels normal. The only thing is, let me tell you about it. When people ask me, or when those have, you know, like my sister and those who know, you know, I don't tell everybody, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I mean, I just told the world, but I mean, I just don't, it's nothing that I just volunteer. It has to be a reason for me to bring it up. I don't just go around talking about it, and I felt this was a reason to bring it up. So that's why I told y'all. So I've been asked, what does it feel like? I tell everybody the only way to describe it is, my butt now feels like a hole should be there, but it isn't. And then we, with proctocolectomies, get what they call, the doctors call it phantom rectum. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. Thank you, I sneezed. I didn't want to do it on camera. Anyway, the doctors call it phantom rectum. It's just like if you lose a limb, you get the phantom limb. It feels as if the limb is still there. I mean, by all accounts, your brain tells you that that limb is there. So if your leg is missing, all of a sudden you may itch. You reach down to scratch it, no leg is there. And you're like, what? That type of thing. They call it phantom. So we get phantom rectum. And I call it phantom butt. And what it does is, you might feel like you have gas. You might feel like you have to go to the bathroom, all that. And yes, you get phantom rectum. And so in order to ease that, what you do is you sit down on the toilet and you act as if you're going. That's it. And then it takes it away. And your brain kicks in, you know, and it stops all that business. I don't get it that much anymore. I used to get it constantly that first year. But now I might get it once a year, if that. But that's what it feels like. Other than that, it is fine. In fact, I like not having, and you know, and then the bag itself, the ileostomy, nothing to it. And so I wanted to demonstrate this to you, and then we'll end this. We'll wrap this up, because I know you've been sitting there for an hour. Okay. I'm going to show you my products, and then you'll see how it all works. Okay. This is the bag that I use. There's many bags out there. You have Hollister, you have Coloplast, you have Convatec, and there's a few more out there, salts, you know. But anyway, this is what my bag looks like. And I chose the opaque bag. You could get a black bag, you can get a clear bag, you could get a mesh bag. But I like the opaque bag. You cannot see the output in it, nothing like that. And I choose to wear a one piece. You can either wear a one piece or a two piece bag. A two piece bag is one that clicks on. You put your flange on around your stoma, and then you click the bag on and off. So if you wear a two-piece, you can keep it on and wear it, but you could also just click it off and change your bag each time that you, when it's time to dump. A lot of people don't do that unless they have a bag that doesn't have the drainage spout. You can get bags that are a lot shorter and there's no drainage spout. In that case, every time it's time to dump, you just take the bag off, throw it in the garbage. That makes it more convenient for some. Some people prefer that. And then you click on a new bag. Then you have a clean bag every day. A bag can be worn for up to, the longest I've done it, because I tested it, the longest I've worn one is 14 days. But I like for my bag to look clean and new. So normally I change my bag anytime between 3 days. They want you to wear it at least 5 days before you change it, because the longer you have it on, you know, your peristomal skin, you know, is covered. So therefore, it doesn't get as irritated or anything. And I don't have any problems with my peristomal skin. Everything looks fine. So I'll change anytime between 3. The longest I usually go is 7 days, but I did push the envelope, and one time I wore it for 14 just to see if I could, and I did. And the bag, you know, it was starting to look kind of murky, you know, and everything. So I don't like for my bags to look that way. So this is the part that sticks to you. And these bags come you can get them pre-cut or you could get them not cut. My insurance pays 100% for my supplies. That I get more than what I need, and I donate. When they had that hurricane this past fall or summer, the people in were they in North Carolina and Florida, they were collecting hurricane relief supplies. I took a 6-month supply of supplies because ostomy, you know, we ostomates, we're like a brethren or whatever, brethren and sisterin. If someone's in trouble, we will help them. And so I'm one of the fortunate ones who do not have a copay. Well, I did, but I will eventually. But right now, for the next 2 years, I don't have a copay. So when they send me extra, I stock it up. I have it there in my spare bedroom. And whenever the call goes out for a disaster, then I will donate. So I just did the 6-month supply at the time of the hurricane. So somebody with an ostomy bag, our instruction is if there's ever a natural disaster and you don't have any supplies, we are to save bread bags and you to wear a bread bag. We're to save tape and bread bags. And some people in other countries don't even have supplies, and that's what they wear. Okay? So anyway, and there is a World Ostomy place that we can donate to. I do not donate to it because a lot of people do. A lot of my ostomates do. I decided to stick with the U.S. and natural disasters. So, and then also people I know have, not people that I know, but people I know have a relative that has to get an ostomy or whatever. And so I'll, donate supplies to them, like M9 and things like that. So I've done that before. One time, my ostomy nurse, she had an emergency. One of her patients lived close to me and she had no supplies and the nurse had no supplies. And she came to me. She was like, Hugh, I know you got them. I was like, what you need? So I gave her enough supplies to last the lady until her supplies, they were delayed or something like that. So until her supplies would get in, I told her, you come back if she starts running low. And so, and then I've helped others with ostomy, mentoring and things like that. But anyway, so this is the bag. This is what it looks like. Okay. And it folds up and then it has the Velcro that holds it, or you can use a clip. Wait, why am I messing up? Here we go. Okay. Nope, I did it the wrong way. It's, wait, okay, if I had the bag on, okay, here we go. Okay, you fold it like this, and then when you get to the Velcro, you just attach it. And then if you want to, you could put a clip across to keep it from opening on you. Usually it does not happen like that. It doesn't open on you or anything, but it can. So a lot of people, especially people who are very active, will wear the clip. Okay, and then this part comes off, and then this part sticks to you. Then you have what they call barrier extenders. This is my barrier extenders. I use 4 of them. And so what it does is it goes around the bag, you know, around your, it overlaps, so it gives you more room, and it keeps you from getting leaks. You can get a leak with the ostomy. I've had a few leaks. The only time I've gotten a leak is because of something that's my fault. And that's another story. The time I ate some pistachios, okay? And we're not supposed to eat nuts, and I ate some anyway and decided to eat the whole bag. Shotgun Louie, okay? We won't even get into that. We'll save that for another story, since y'all know about the ostomy. So those are the barrier extenders. And then this is called a barrier ring. You put this around the ring of your ostomy. And like I said, you can either get them pre-cut. Some people like to cut their own because their stoma sometimes might change size. Mine was measured. It stayed the same size. So I get my bags pre-cut. The less work I have to do, the better. So easy peasy. And this goes around that. And what it does is it keeps the output from trying to seep under. It sends it down into the bag. So if the output happens to come up, then it's going to go back down because of this barrier ring. This is adhesive remover to get the bag off. And these come in handy for anything. And I be giving them away and stuff because, like, let's say you have a Band-Aid on and you scared to rip it off because the hair on your arm or whatever is gonna hurt. Pour the juice of this and use the thing, and it take whatever is adhesive wise off, and it removes all the gunk and stickiness behind it. So when I take my bag off, I use this. I pour the juice on. That loosens up the flange. I pull it off, and then I take the pad and clean around my stoma. Then to wash the stoma, zinc oxide is good for the skin, so we use Head and Shoulders or Flonase. Some people use Flonase. They'll spray the Flonase around the stoma after they've washed it with soap and water. And the zinc oxide in it keeps the skin from itching, and it keeps the skin looking nice and neat. So I use Head and Shoulders. So when I wash around the stoma area, I use Head and Shoulders shampoo. And so that's what that's for. So I don't have any itching, no irritation, nothing. And the stoma, it's no feeling to it. So you can't even feel anything. Now, I still will be getting colonoscopies, but what they're called are stomoscopies or something. I forgot. But it's a colonoscopy in the stomach, or the stoma, which we sometimes call the belly butt. So what the doctor do is they take a pediatric scope, and most patients are woke. I'd rather be asleep for mine. You could choose to either be put out for it, just like with the colonoscopy, or you can stay woke. There's no feeling in there, so you won't feel it. But I don't even want to see it, okay? But they stick it in there, and then they check your upper, the upper intestine, your stomach, all that stuff, just like normal. I've never had one since I've had my stoma, and it's time for me to get it, just to make sure everything is okay. Now, this is what they call stoma powder, and this is what keeps you from getting irritated. When you're changing your bag, you put a little stoma powder around your stoma, and then this is no sting barrier film. And so what I do is crust. I take this after I put the powder on, and I dab it with this, and the barrier film makes a little crust around the powder, and that seals it in. And the barrier film saves the skin from getting irritated. That's it. Once I do that, I flop the bag on, and I'm on my way. I'm done. And it takes me all of about 3 minutes to do it. Prep takes longer than changing the bag. And we take naked showers, so I can get in the shower naked or the bathtub. A trick to that is, if you don't want output coming out, you pop a marshmallow. Marshmallow stops the output for about 2 hours. So you pop a marshmallow, or I say that my stoma is trained. If you don't eat before you get into the water or into the shower, nothing will come out anyway. If there's nothing going in, nothing's coming out. That's the thing. Okay? This is the star of the show, M9. This is that deodorizer I was telling you about. And when I say it works, it works. All you need is one drop. So they send me mounds of this. And you see it's 8 ounces. So this lasts me, a bottle of this lasts me for like 2 or 3 months. I've got reserves, okay? So I give it to my sister and, whoever. And I tell them, just put a drop in the toilet before you go number 2, and it will eliminate the odor. A lot of the nurses at the hospital, I take my own to the hospital because you can't find it at the hospital because the nurses, they put it in a spray bottle. A lot of them are smokers, and you're not supposed to smoke on grounds. And so they don't want to come in smelling like smoke. So they put it in a spray bottle. They water it down. They put a drop in so that, it's pretty much clear, and they spray it. They spray it on them. And when they come in, they don't smell like cigarette smoke. So that's just how powerful this stuff is. And it's odorless. You do not smell it. Now, it is blue. It's blue in color. You can see that it's blue. But the color dissipates. It goes away real easily. It washes away. It doesn't stain, that type of thing. Good stuff. This is the best stuff out there. And that's the reason why ostomies no longer stink. They used to smell real bad, and that's where the stigma began. And so people don't want to let the stigma go. And the reason why I am an ostomy advocate, because I don't have to be, and a lot of people are too ashamed of it. There's 2 reasons why I'm an ostomy advocate. Number 1, the first reason is because I have a friend. She was actually my mentor after I got diagnosed with lupus, because she was initially diagnosed with lupus. And then she ended up getting other autoimmune diseases throughout the years that I knew her. I met her in 2002. She passed away in 2010. Anyway, she ended up getting Crohn's disease. And she was so afraid of the bag because of the stigma and stuff. She refused to get the surgery, and she passed away from complications from Crohn's disease. She just basically wasted away. And I said, there's no reason to be afraid of it. And so in her memory, that was the one of the reasons why I decided that, I would be an advocate, because anybody who's afraid to get it because they think that, that it's going to smell bad, or they're going to be ostracized, which some people are, but that's other people's ignorance. So if somebody wants to ostracize you, then fine, go on, because a lot of people say, well, I met a date, and as soon as they found out I had the bag. Well, there are ostomy dating sites out there. This is one site called Meet and Ostomate. So pull it up online and you'll see it. And there's many ostomates out there. You just pull up, and it's free, totally free. So you just pull it up and you can meet an ostomate. That's for those of you out there who may have an ostomy, and or you may know somebody who who has one, and they may not date anyone or whatever. And then the other thing, Facebook, lots of places online, ostomies with ostomate singles with ostomies, that type of thing. And so yeah, it's a blast. I'm not dating now, but I had already decided. And one of my friends, Robert, told me, why would you limit yourself? I said, if I ever decide to date again, it would have to be someone with an ostomy. Why would you limit yourself? I said, it would take someone special for me to, to date without an ostomy, because a lot of people don't understand them or whatever. But there are people who don't have one who do understand them, because they may have had a family member with one, or they may have had one and it was reversed. Now, in that case, I would consider it. But for now, I don't even worry about all that, So, I mean, I have friends and whatnot, but I'm really not dating at this time. And plus, I'm old, so it would have to be somebody in my age range and all that. But anyway, another thing I wanted to tell you about that, we're going to wrap it up. My mother's friend is a seamstress, so she takes all of her extra fabric that she has left over, and she makes me ostomy bag covers. Oh, we are innovative and fun and creative with our bags. A lot of people will take glue and glitter their bags and just, style them up. Males the same way, they do things too with theirs, but I like the ostomy covers. So that way, if I wanted to wear my bag out, and some people do, I really don't, but I do use the cover. Like if I'm going out, if I'm out of town or something like that, I will use the cover. And so this is how a bag looks in a cover. You just slip the bottom part through here, and then when you dump it, you pull it out, and then you can empty your bag. I usually just pull it out, and then I pull this back, so, I make sure that it's not going to get anything on it, which it never does. And then this is how it looks. So, the bag is on you, and then you slip this on, and then you could, take it off or whatever. I just do that, because everybody knows I have an ostomy. So if I'm around like family, like for instance, I might have on a pair of pants that, although I can wear pants, and stuff like that, but I don't like for the ostomy to be constricted because, once it's filling up and stuff, you don't want something pressing on it. So I might take the bag off, I can, not off, but I can take it. Wait a minute. I'm showing it now. I'm going to show y'all. Hold on. Okay. See how my pants are? Now this is over the bag. Okay. So I'm not going to take it out, but as you can see, the bag is there. I just changed it today. So you see how it looks. And then I would just pull the bag out. So the bag is on the outside of my pants. So if I'm going somewhere, if I have my bag like that day, you could best believe it's going to be covered. And then my shirt and everything will be over the bag. Okay, so you have gotten your ostomy education. You've heard my near-death experience. Sorry this took so long because we're at 1 hour and 16 minutes. But I just wanted to, add that education in. So I hope that you got the gist of the story. If you have any questions, please post them. You may have a question, feel free. And you know what? Eventually I am going to run out of stories. So then we'll be doing Q&As. But anytime, when I announce a Q&A, if you have any questions concerning this ostomy and stuff, just ask the question in this thread, and then I'll answer it. I try to answer everybody, although it's a lot of y'all, but I like it. I don't mind it at all. I like to be personable and answer everything. Every now and then you'll see where I'll hit like and a heart if it's really nothing to say or whatever. But if it's something to say, I try to answer every comment. I know eventually it'll get to the point, if this channel continues to grow, it might get to the point where it's just too much and it may be too overwhelming. But for the time being, it's fairly easy for me to do it. And so if you have a question, I do read every response. Now that's going to happen because I want to catch the trolls, okay? Because there's always a troll. One's going to come. And I want to catch them so I can ban them, okay? They will be banished. But anyway, the second reason why I am an ostomy advocate, my brother, I was forbidden to tell his story. And I was like, I'll be damned. Wait, at first I didn't. Then I was like, no. I'm telling my brother's story. And that's going to be another story. But needless to say, my brother, he was diagnosed with colon cancer suddenly. No symptoms. He had just had his colonoscopy, everything. And I'm not going to go into his whole story. I'm just letting you know how it all came about. And it was in 2013. His cancer was located in an area where the endoscope couldn't reach it, nor could the colon thing. It's one little spot that's a layer, and his cancer was located right in that. And so when he ended up getting diagnosed with it, it was a fight for his life. He did well, went into remission, but my brother ended up with a colonoscopy as a result. And I was forbidden to even tell it because I was told he was ashamed of it and no one knew. I was like, he wasn't ashamed of it. Everybody knew that he had an ostomy. In fact, he had mentioned it on Facebook and he said it saved his life. So I knew my brother wasn't ashamed of it. Then it dawned on me, the person who said that to me, perhaps they were ashamed of it. And then I come behind it. It was a relative. And then all of a sudden I need one. So maybe it was them that might be ashamed, of it and don't want it discussed and didn't want, me being vocal about it. But too bad. I was like, sorry. So I was quiet for a while because I was told, all that. And then it bothered me because I said, his story is my story. If it was not for my brother, because when my brother got his, I wanted to know everything about his. And so, he showed it to me. So I knew it was nothing to fear and all that, and I never thought I'd end up with one. And how I wish he had lived, because we would have been ostomate brother and sister. That would have been so cool, okay? And I'm quite sure he's probably looking down, smiling. And see, my brother got reversed, and that was the beginning of the end. He should have kept it, but he got reversed. And so, I mean, he had the opportunity, and most people who have that opportunity will get reversed. If I had the opportunity, I would. I'm not going to lie. But I'm used to it, and I don't mind having it. But if I had the opportunity, if I could go back to the years before all this, of course, you're going to do that. I worry about after death. I've already told my sister, if I die, make sure I'm buried in the bag. I don't want my stoma. I know they'll have to tape, and all that stuff to keep the embalming fluid from coming out and all that stuff. But I want the bag on there. I want it on there because, when I get back to the transit line, as I call it, I want that bag on. I don't want to be, messing up. So, and then I'll let Jesus heal me once I reach the other side, okay? But in the meantime, bury me in my bag. It's no shame in my game. I love it. So those are the two reasons why I'm an advocate, because I feel they're both deceased now. And I said that if I can prevent or help somebody and it could, the bag would save their life. It's some people who hate it. Some people just absolutely hate having a bag. They're depressed, and I just cannot see that. But then lots of people have trouble too. So I try to understand, they can't leave the house because their bag won't stick. I've been very fortunate. But my nurse told me, she said, attitude is 99% of it. She's like, you went in with a good attitude. You were willing to learn. You did everything textbook. She said, and as a result, she said, most people who do that have a good outcome. And I've had an excellent outcome with mine. I love it. Believe me. Okay. When I'm out and whatnot, I don't have to worry about having to go to the bathroom. I have to do number one, of course. But I mean, having a bag is wonderful. It is wonderful. So anyway, let me get off because we're at almost 90 minutes. So this is it. I'm done. Okay, so you guys, I told you about the blanket. I decided to go with the granny square. Let's see. Nothing else to announce. So I'm going to be off of here, and I'll be back. Oh, and I will be back this midweek. I am going back. I'm going to try the liquidation store 5 minutes from my house. Probably on Monday or Tuesday of this week. I'm going to see because when I passed it the other day and didn't stop, there was no one there really. It was like empty. So I'm going to stop, because if it's empty during the day, I can go there and hopefully there's some tool there and I can go on and get that other 10 yards. I don't want to give up on that. Nothing else, just the tool. And then I'm out of there while I have the opportunity, because it's cheap. Okay, so I'm off of here, and I will see you midweek if I make it to the liquidation store. I may or may not. I don't know. They may shut down before then. But I will come back and I will tell you about that. And then next week's story, I don't know what we will talk about. I don't know. Do you want to hear my brother's story or my mother's story? Then I have a story about my 100-year-old friend that I had when I lived in Oklahoma. I could do I was going to say an all about me story, but y'all going to be learning that as we go along. But if there are any questions, pertaining to this, perhaps I can do next week's video, the Q&A on, my ostomy journey and all that, and autoimmune stuff. You may have some questions, or you may know somebody, or, whatever. So we'll see. We'll come up with something. But believe me, I'll have a topic for next Sunday's show. And this is actually Saturday, so you're looking at future Q, because this will be uploaded on tomorrow. And I wish I knew how to edit, because I could cut some of this out. So, okay, we're at, 88 minutes here. So let me get off of here. So I will talk to you guys later. And may God bless you all. Bye-bye.